bringing back the girls, rescuing these schoolgirls that have been abducted is hopefully, if it comes to pass,
yes,
part of this deal.
That's right. So it might be too early, as you were saying, Claire, to be declaring victory for an online campaign. But already some are wondering if the pressure brought to bear by what is known, or what became known as hashtag activism with the Bring Back Our Girls campaign, may or not have may have helped these diplomatic efforts in Nigeria to put pressure on Boko Haram. So you can see there, going back to March, April of this year and into the summer months, Michelle Obama and others threw their weight behind that campaign. And you have some kind of expressing some surprise that there may be a breakthrough in negotiations to release those, or have those schoolgirls released. And so you can see that there is that kind of questions are being asked there. Andrew Strolin is one of the heads of the international director of the International Crisis Group, former communications director, and he says credit to the Bring Back Our Girl group as a deal, maybe on the horizon. Maybe the Bring Back Our Girls mission finally worked. Another person saying they just need to get iPads and Wi-Fi to the warlords. I think you could say there's a note of cynicism in that particular tweet, whereby, first of all, the warlords probably aren't massively hooked up, and even if they are, I doubt the Bring Back Our Girls campaign really influenced their thinking, but perhaps it did indeed place some pressure from the international community on the authorities in Nigeria to do something about it. Valérie Trierweiler, the former First Lady in France, was also quite active on this issue, and she sounded a note of caution today on social media, on Twitter, saying, they're not free yet. Let's not celebrate just yet. This is an article, just to finish with, Claire, going back to May of this year, saying hashtag activism is working and Boko Haram should be scared of it. Now, what they were pointing out is, if you go back to February, 60 boys were burnt to death as they slept at a boarding school in Yobe. This is still Nigeria. That same month, 150 Christian men were hacked to death and gunned down in a village in central Nigeria. The international media wasn't talking about it, and it was really this campaign started by a lawyer in Nigeria, and it just took off, that put it front and centre of the media attention, and perhaps that then contributed to international pressure on Goodluck Jonathan's government to really do something about this.
And we'll have to see how that unfolds now over the coming hours and days. Next, James, to contrasting political communications in the US and France.
That's right. Well, you saw that hashtag Bring Back Our Girls and Michelle Obama using that. There is a real effort in the White House communications team, I think it's fair to say, to use social media well. And their latest effort, if I can find it here, is a Vine. Now, we might take a listen to this. This is an anti-obesity campaign, and it's a 6-second looped Vine where Michelle Obama is playing on the Turn Up For What song, which is quite big in the US at the moment. And it's, instead of turn down rather for what, it's turn up for what. I'm not sure if we have the audio, but in any case, you get the picture. Meanwhile...
It doesn't look too tasty. She could have made a recipe or something.
Possibly. In the meanwhile, meantime, at the Élysée Palace, it's Operation, I suppose, saving François Hollande's image at the moment. A big effort to have a transparent approach to the media. A team from Le Monde newspaper were invited in for 1 week, Claire. Open doors access to all of the back rooms, the kitchen, the presidential office, the Élysée Palace cinema, you name it. They were allowed access to everything. Never before seen access to the Élysée Palace for such a long period in any case. Also, a documentary crew have been invited in. So I think François Hollande is really trying to play the transparency card in a bid to up his popularity stakes. One detail that came out of that interview is how he manages press or photo calls. So when he's, for example, greeting a head of state on the front steps of the Élysée, he said, I always look straight ahead, because if you look to the side, if you're looking the wrong way, it's a sign of lassitude. If you're wearing your tie askew, it's a sign of negligence. If your head is bowed, you're perceived as despondent or dejected. So I pay attention to everything, even though my nature is to be spontaneous, he said. I force myself to look straight ahead. And he gave the example of a for sale sign opposite the front steps of the Élysée Palace on the street opposite, and he'd fixed that with his eyes in a bid to not give the press or the photojournalists the slightest excuse to paint him in a way that's unfavourable.
Why do I suspect this could be a very risky strategy for François Hollande?
Well, this is it. Everything can be twisted now in a negative manner. Speaking of, there's actually a tumbler for his tie, which is frequently askew. You can see it there with with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and indeed it was a little bit askew. It seems to be a fashion statement.
Well, I think askew ties are the least of his worries
Yes,
at the moment. James Queen,
sure.
thanks very much for bringing us Media Watch. Time now for Focus, and today we travel to Cameroon to address an issue that's